Today I want to introduce you to the log cabin block. It's a basic block for beginning quilters and is often the very first quilt that somebody makes when they start learning to quilt. So this is our project for today, a log cabin block which consists of 3 light and 3 dark fabrics and a hearthstone. So we begin our sewing by taking the hearthstone and placing the strip of the first light on top of it and sewing them together lengthwise. Using our standard 1/4 inch seam, we're just going to sew down the lengthwise for a ways. That should be far enough so that we get 3 blocks out of this. And our next move is to the cutting board first and then the ironing board. We are using 2.5 inch strips to make this log cabin. So we're going to cut 2.5 blocks here. That's 1. Using the ruler as our measure rather than the board, because the ruler is always accurate. The board can have a few little dints and cracks in it and so on. So this is the more accurate. So there is our 3 hearthstones and first block. Now we have to move. The thing we do is set the seam by putting a hot iron on top of it. And then for this whole project, we're going to be ironing towards the most recent block that's been added. In this case, that will be the first light. So we'll set the seam, pick it up, and iron towards that light. And again for the third one. All right, now we are ready to go back to the sewing. The next thing that we do is we take the first light again, place the ones that we've already made with the most recent one, in this case the first light, at the top, and lay it on the strip. And we're going to sew down that strip. Again, lengthwise. And then we're going to do something that we call continuous sewing. So we're going to put the next strip below it. Leave a tiny little space between if you like, or butt it right up on the other one. And sew it down. And finally the third one. And again, always with this one at the top, the most recent one. Okay, and the next step is to go back to the cutting board so we can cut these strips apart. The next thing we do is we're going to cut these pieces apart. So we use the ruler and we cut them just on the edge of that pattern, and I like to just move down here and then turn the strip and cut that little tiny bit that's between out, making sure that they are just now 2 times the 2.5 inch blocks in this case. And this one. Then we can go back to the ironing board, and again we're going to set the seams, and then we're going to press towards the most recent block. All right, so we set the seam again by putting the hot iron down, and then we iron towards that new block. Not sure why it's deciding to curl the bottom up. Hey. at the seam. Pick this up and iron towards the newest one. And there, we're ready to go for the first dark now. The next thing we do is we take the first dark strip, putting it at close to the top, but avoiding the selvage, which I haven't cut off yet, and lacing it in the same way that we did before, making sure that the last thing that we put on is at the top of the block, and we're going to sew it down the length this side as well. And again, using the continuous sewing, which is a way of saving time and thread, and is a valuable tip that new quilters need to learn quickly. Because if you have to stop between each block, cut the block apart, and then start again, you're wasting a lot of thread and a lot of time. Okay, this is the last of the 3, and then we'll be heading back to the cutting board again. As before, we're going to place these blocks on the cutting board. We're going to cut between them, and again, cutting right on the edge of that block, and then flipping them around so you can get the other little bunch of fabric that was left in between the continuous sewing, so that they're nice and stay the same size. You don't want to be adding stuff to the blocks in each new thing that doesn't belong there. So trimming carefully, and here we go, and then back to the ironing board. Again, setting the seam and ironing to the most recent. Thereafter, after going back to the cutting board and the ironing board, we're going to do them in the following order. Next, we'll do the second light, and then the second dark, and then the third light, and the third dark, till we have a completed log cabin. voila, we have 3 finished log cabin blocks. These can be used individually as centerpieces for a table, or you can combine them into a table runner, for example. Or, of course, if you made more of them, you can make all kinds of things, from wall hangings to king-size quilts. You just do the same thing over and over again until you had enough blocks to make that king size. This is the first block that many quilters make, and it's a unique one and gives you a good sense of how to do some things basic to quilting and satisfaction of a completed job.